This Rome Total War commentary video is one of the prizes offered for interesting play in the Quest for Elsyium Tournament that I, Cluny the Scourge, hosted on the 8th of February 2009. In this battle we see one of the contestants, MaceMan, playing as the Seleucid Empire, and he took 5 units of Silver Shield Pikemen with the gold weapon upgrade, 2 Silver Shield Legionary units, no upgrades, deployed on the flanks, and 4 companion cavalry with light upgrades only. Now his opponent, Selifator, playing as Egypt, took 6 units of desert cavalry, who looked to be gold and gold-silver upgraded, a mix, and they're looking a little sheepish fighting in 4 inches of rain-soaked snow slush as desert cavalry. 6 units of bowmen with the gold weapon upgrade, and 6 of Nile spearmen. Gold-silver upgrade except for the general's unit, who is more heavily upgraded. In other words, MaceMan has taken a rush army with significantly stronger infantry, but no missiles at all, while Selifator has taken a strong missile component. The cavalry between the two armies is a little less easy to compare. Desert cavalry have an armor-piercing capability, as axe cavalry, and they're more numerous here by a 64 advantage. Plus, with the fast-moving trait, they should be better placed to achieve an envelopment. But companion cavalry are significantly tougher and better disciplined, pound for pound. Having taken a rush army, MaceMan needs to get his troops right into combat as quickly as possible. Selifator assists him in this by rushing his army over to his left in order to square off against MaceMan, instead of making a left wheel with the villa that forms the central feature of the map holding his right. He also neglects to unite his 2 wings of cavalry in the face of the Seleucids' massed horsemen. So the Seleucid infantry line crashes home, 7 units of infantry to the Egyptian 5, and every man superior in stats. We see here the cream of the Seleucid infantry, armed with pikes, faced off against regular mainstay troops armed with much shorter spears. But in his haste to engage, MaceMan has made a mistake here, as you can see, by allowing one of his legionary units to charge frontally right into a phalanx. Such a unit here needs to be held back to exploit gaps or exposed flanks. MaceMan does recognize his error and pulls the legionary unit back pretty soon. Selifator now takes advantage of the overlap between the two armies to move his archers over to his right, where they can achieve a defilade upon the Seleucid troops, while also beginning to move some of his Nile spearmen around the flank to strike against them there. In a head-to-head phalanx grind, there can be no doubt as to the victor, so Egypt needs to achieve either cavalry supremacy, or to make impressive use of its missile supremacy, or else to achieve much through maneuvering. But MaceMan has flanking moves of his own to make over on his right, with this unopposed phalanx unit and his shield legionaries. He is in fact going to detail those legionaries away over to the right to support his cavalry. And Selifator seems to have dropped the ball on that score. He separated his cavalry even further in the face of the Seleucid horsemen, and allowed them to pounce on these 2 units and put them to flight, before he committed his remaining 4 units. Perhaps Selifator's intention was to use those 2 forward desert cavalry to lure the companions forward into an engagement, so that he could achieve an envelopment with his remaining horsemen. But instead he allows the companions to achieve the envelopment. And MaceMan very nearly gets away with it, especially since he used his legionaries to support his horsemen here. That's good strategy, very sharp. The engagement seesaws, first some Seleucid units rout, then some Egyptian units rout, but in the end the Seleucids are left only with their general, surviving with just 2 of his men, while the Egyptians have 2 badly damaged desert cavalry units remaining. We're going to see both of those sets of survivors reappearing in this battle to take a role at a later moment in the video. So, while their cavalry have been contesting supremacy, both sides have been attempting flanking moves, Selifator on his right and MaceMan on his right. Here we see Selifator's flanking move closing in, 2 units of Nile spearmen chewing up this silver shield phalanx from their left. The only way it could be more devastating is if one of the Nile spearmen units had been run around to attack them from the rear, but that would have exposed them to an attack from the Silver Shield legionaries, which Selifator can see MaceMan still has on that side of the battle. In fact, MaceMan appears to have forgotten about his left-hand legionary unit, and they remain idle and inactive. in a hectic battle when you're anxiously trying to micromanage units elsewhere. It reminds me of a battle I fought 3 or 4 months ago myself, which was also Seleucids versus Egypt as it happens. I completely forgot about 4 entire units of cataphracts that I had waiting in the rear of my army, which was nearly half the denarii cost of my entire force, so that was pretty embarrassing. Judging that he can rely on the natural superiority of his pikemen to win on his right by themselves, and he's right about that, MaceMan decides to send his outflankers running along the full length of the Egyptian line, to support the struggling and outflanked pike unit on his left where Selifator is winning. It's not a bad plan, but Selifator has other ideas and comes up with a desperate ploy, which becomes even more necessary when MaceMan punches through on his far right by defeating the Nile spearmen there. Selifator charges his archers in to hold in place the 2 silver shield units loose in his rear area long enough to finish rolling up the Seleucid left. These bowman units are of course doomed, and they are both going to be routed, but they give their lives gladly. It is a far, far better suicide attack I do than I have ever done. It is a far better casualties stat I go to than I have ever known. So the Seleucid left and middle have now disintegrated. We see that this use of cheap, disposable troops to snag enemy elites in place long enough for some other tactical purpose to be achieved has been fully effective. Selifator is able to bring to bear everything he had from the right-hand side of his formation against this outflanking phalanx unit. Can they stand steady in the face of this onslaught and so save this wing of the Seleucid army? No. And here, finally, freed from the cavalry engagement, come the victorious desert cavalry. BAM! Let's see that again in slow motion. BAM! But their bravery is not forgotten by the gods. At the moment of their deaths they're gifted with a vision of the warrior's paradise promised to them, and surge with an angelic glow of light. Either that, or they're radioactive super soldiers from one of the Third Reich's secret weapons experiments. We now witness a further gloomy sight. The snagging and isolated overwhelming of that forgotten legion in the rear of the Seleucid position by archers. Outnumbered 3 to 1, isolated from the morale reinforcing support of the rest of the army, and witnessing the routing of other units, and witnessing the routing of other elite Seleucid units, they are gradually worn down and overwhelmed. A humiliating end for an elite unit. In the last words of one dying soldier traditionally crying out for his mother, "Please don't let me old ma know I was killed by bowmen with a base melee attack stat of 3. She'll give me such an earful." Let's skip back in time just 30 seconds or so to see what's happening on the Seleucid right. Here the legionary unit that was supporting the cavalry has returned, as has the general, but a charge by regrouped desert cavalry is premature. After defying the odds by coming out alive from 2 separate scrums of this type now, the Seleucid general chases his broken enemies, jeering, "I feel fantastic and I'm still alive. While you're dying I'll be still alive. And when you're dead I will be still alive. Still alive. Still alive." Behind him, however, the last dregs of the Seleucid army are being mopped up. All that remains is for the final legionary unit to go out in a blaze of glory. Considering that the rules in this tournament forbade the use of chariots, Selifator has done pretty well with his Egyptian force. MaceMan has made a few mistakes, but also good moves that were frustrated by forces beyond his control. The Seleucid general is going to be killed attempting a rear charge by himself against a Nile spearman phalanx. Knowing he's about to die, in his last moments he considers the world around him. The Seleucid general here addresses his last surviving comrade. "Do you ever get the feeling we're being watched, Fred?" "Watched? What do you mean, Bill?" "Well, sort of like by a mysterious invisible floating eye that zooms around through the air over our heads, secretly controlling everything we do." "You want to stop doing that weed, Bill. That last bag we scored from Twitchy the Spider was some bad shit." And so the last thought to pass through the general's mind was any of this real, or was it all just bad shit? 30 battles were fought in this tournament between 12 contestants. Replays were sent to me to be studied, and I chose 2 to make into videos, plus the final. This is the second of the 3 videos.